Hello and welcome to the Awaken Feminine podcast. I'm your host, 𝐼𝐸, and today I have the beautiful Mary Scott with me. Mary has been on my podcast before, and I've known Mary now for over 6 years. She asked me how old my kids are before we jumped on. And then I went, well, the last time you saw Evie would be like when she was 3, so she's turning 9 this year.
That's scary. Isn't that? Oh my God.
That is a bit scary, actually. So, wow, it's been that long, and so much has happened. We were both in the same business together before, and now we've both left, and life has had lots of twists and turns since then. So I'm excited to talk to you about that. But Mary, I'd love for you to just do a brief introduction of who you are, what you do, and where you're joining me from.
Hey, first of all, thanks for having me, Koki. Yes, you and I do go back a little bit, and always think fondly of you. You hold some good memories in my heart. And I'm joining you today from the Sunshine Coast, and I live here with my 2 standard poodles who keep me in check. Good companion. And I call myself a confidence coach, but I bring quite a range of experience. I couldn't think of another name, to be honest. So my background is in nursing, psychotherapist for many years, and currently confidence coach. But I can't help myself. My therapy seems to come in a little bit and trickle into those coaching sessions. I've had some weird and wonderful jobs in my life, and when I had my psychotherapy practice in Melbourne in Australia for 16 years, I just burnt myself out. And then I went on this crazy journey of working offshore, fly in, fly out work, doing crazy stuff. And then one day I woke up. I was like, I'm not on my purpose anymore. What just happened? And it was a 7-year cycle, believe it or not. And I just came back to my purpose and what am I supposed to be doing? What on earth did I go out there for? Like I worked in a detention centre in the middle of the Pacific for 3 years with 900 and something asylum seekers under my care. And now when I think about all that 7 years curve I took, it helps inform me more today on my life with my clients, my journey. I'm about to facilitate another boot camp this weekend about fear, taking you from fear to freedom. And every one of those experiences, because you can see I'm a bit older than 25, brings me to this point today. And I feel so nourished by all these experiences. And so if you can think of a better word, please connect with me rather than confidence coach. But look, that'll do for now.
Mary, you hold a very special place in my heart too. And yeah, it's just crazy how life's twists and turns bring us back to our path in the end. It's like you just need to go there and bring in that experience. And like you said, your psychotherapy trickles in, but that's what makes you unique in your coaching. I don't know. I know what you mean with the confidence coach, because I don't really know what to call myself either. So right now is just like a non-entity, non-like label at the moment. But yeah, I totally get what you mean by that. So Mary, I've asked you this before, so I'm going to ask you again, just because I know it's probably changed from last time you answered it. But what is your current definition, version of the awakened feminine?
Oh, you did ask me last time. No, I think where it takes me, and I can't remember what I said last time, which is lovely because it's good to bring freshness to the conversation. I think that awareness is everything. Without awareness, we die. I align awareness with awakening. And what I certainly hope to do is wake more people up. The awakening's feminine to me is the sisterhood, the looking out for other women that need to be awakened. And I think we all have a duty to that as women. And as a woman on my own these days, I'm more acutely aware of that. And I'm a big believer in cheer squads. Anyone that knows me would know that. And I think that I'm very keen to be mixing with awakened women and have nourishing and meaningful conversations. So that's what it means to me.
I love that so much. And yeah, definitely. I think as I myself also get older, like the sisterhood is so important, and having people cheer you on, people that understand, and helping other people to awaken. Yes, I resonate so much with everything that you just said. So thank you for sharing that current version of the awakened feminine for you. Now, Mary, we're talking about big topic today. So when I got you to fill out the form to come on my podcast, you wrote that you want to call your episode "What's Personal Development Got to Do with the Dying Process?" And I know I'll let you talk about, why you want to talk about this, because I have some kind of understanding of why. Yeah, would you like to share with our audience why actually you decided that this is the topic that you want to talk about today with me?
Well, it's important to me deeply. Last year, I lost my partner of 26 years to metastatic breast cancer. And it was almost a 5-year journey. And it struck me so profoundly, especially in the last 7, 8 months of her journey. Her name was Jean. That the way she was managing herself through this process was profound, in that she was learning right up into her last breath. And when I say learning, her personal growth continued. And that really got me thinking, and it made me more curious about how we die is how we live, if that makes sense. Because the actual dying process is the hard part. The death's the easy part. The death is the natural progression. She used to say, I don't know why everyone's fussing about this. It's just the next part of the cycle. And I remember being in a palliative care appointment with her once. And I suppose the palliative care nurse was maybe between 30 and 40. And she said, Jen, would you like to see a psychologist? I'm Jen. I'm dying. And the woman nearly fell off her chair, because I imagine she's not used to that directness. But she said 2 things. I hope I can get through this. She said, it's just part of the cycle. Why on earth would I be worried about it? I'm learning about it. And the second thing she said is, I don't like it because I'll be there and Mary will be here. And I got it, that would be true. But in that moment, I was struck that, the patient learning from the nurse and the nurse learning from the patient. And I didn't ask the nurse had she had responses like that before, but I thought it was so aware for Jean to say that. And that's That's how we lived the last, 26 years together. I used to annoy the hell out of her because I would always want to lift up the next stone and have a deeper conversation. And she'd say, "Can we just leave it now?" I'm like, no, I think there's more, so I'd drive her crazy. And the process that we went through was no different. But with my nursing background, I've witnessed a lot of death. I've seen people really struggle through that process of dying, grabbing onto things, calling the church, the minister, a whole lot of variations of that. But for me, the bottom line is that knowing yourself and being committed to the process during your life of deepening your awareness helps the dying process profoundly. People would come to visit because the last few months Jean was at home, I nursed her at home. We had all the, hospital beds and everything. And I was struck that she was comforting people who were coming to say goodbye. I was like, hang on a minute, it's not supposed to be like this, is it? I've got this wrong. As I made the cups of tea, I could get on, but that's what led me to this.
Yeah.
Never too late to explore yourself and what's important to you. Because at the end of the day, what's important for me, what was important for Jean, is that we were connected to the end. And that she was growing to her death. Think about that. She was growing to her death. It's just phenomenal. I feel so privileged to have shared that and to have learnt so much. And the contrast, of course, is, I said I'd shut up and I haven't. The contrast is that, we weren't big into hospitals. I'll say that. But a couple of times we had to go to hospital, what struck me was that as the trolleys were lined up going into emergency, when I looked behind, I saw a lot of people just sitting on the trolleys on their own without any support, without anyone going through this experience. And I saw a couple of elderly gentlemen on their own. And I thought, how must this be for them? They both looked terribly unwell. And I felt that someone that loved them were actually robbing themselves of this beautiful experience that they could have been part of. Now, I don't know whether they're about to pass. I'm not making judgments like that, but these meaningful things that happen in our lives, they're all opportunities, aren't they? Opportunities to learn more and grow. So don't rob yourself. Take the plunge in. Did I always like the journey? No, I didn't. I cried my way through it. Man, did I grow. And it's not a year yet, and I'm still growing, and I'm still surprised at my reaction. And I've been a student in personal development since the 70s. However, it's never too late to start, is it? If you're listening to this and you're like, oh, I don't know, I haven't got that many years, it's okay, as long as you start.
Yeah. I think it's never too late to start your personal development, and thank you for sharing that. You did say I have leaky eye syndrome before we jumped on, and that started pretty early on because obviously I've met Jean and know her, and she's such a beautiful person. So just you sharing that
company.
Yeah, it's it's beautiful. And I just want you to maybe expand. There's so much gold that you were talking about just now, but at the beginning you said, was it you live the way you die? Was it? Yeah. Can you
Yes.
expand a bit more about what you mean by that? I know it's got to do with personal growth and you kind of did mention it, but can you expand a bit more so people understand what you mean?
My observation, especially in my nursing years, is that and I just to preface this, I was fortunate in the 80s to work in the first palliative care unit that was established in Australia down in Melbourne. And what I observed was that somehow when people got that prognosis of, and I hate this, 6 months, 3 months, or whatever it is, that people stop living. Now, my understanding of that was that maybe they didn't see the point. It all felt too futile. What's the use? And all their attention goes on what medication I've got to take. Can I make it through this day? All of that. But you see, I think it's about how can we live to a final hour in a meaningful way, rather than we've got this diagnosis that's going to take us out of the game and everything's going to stop now. We're going to stop learning. And I think we can, in that moment, you've got the capacity to cheat yourself. But if you had never lived a full life, total thriving and nourishing and juicy stuff, you're not going to live your dying months, years like that, are you? Because it's not the way that you have chosen to live. So I think that decide to flourish, decide to be nourished every day. And I honestly believe that that makes the dying process, if in fact, because we don't all have time to get our affairs in order and speak what's on our heart to people that we love. Some people are just taken out of the game for whatever reason. And that's for another whole podcast, isn't it? About timing and everything. But it is all about timing. But I think, Jean was such a inspiration to me and to other people. Every day she would look out the window, the sun's shining. Oh, I can see look at that king parrot. She couldn't get out of bed in those last few days, but she's excited about the day. She thanked me 1,000 times a day. Because I'll throw another little bit in here, just as a digression, but I didn't cook for 26 years. I used to cook and the plate the right way, facing the right way, with no drips on the plate, all that kind of thing. But in those last few weeks, I got back to cooking, and there was never a day where she didn't say, you could have arranged this differently. She was giving me feedback. And one time, it's not quite what you're asking me, but one time I decided to have a bit of courage and make a bread and butter pudding. It's an old pudding, isn't it? Bread and butter pudding. I don't know if you know it, and I was so excited to make it. And she just let me make it. And make sure you get good cream, it's got to be good organic cream. And I was laughing. So I served it up. And she practically took the pattern off the plate. And then there was a little pause and she said, "Are you open to feedback?" And I was like, "Oh no, she's going to give me feedback about the bread and butter pudding." I said, "Yeah, it's all right." Well, the bread was too big. You need to cut it up smaller. It was just too chunky. And, then we would just start laughing and laughing. Now, that was a week before she passed, and we were laughing We were laughing together. And that's what it's all about, isn't it? I was talking to one of my beautiful younger clients yesterday, and they're talking about anger. And they were saying about their friends being angry with each other, and then suddenly someone started to laugh, and how it changed the whole feeling in the room. The anger dissipated and the laughter got louder. And I think that we have to laugh. We have to see the good in everything, if that's possible. Because Jean would always say that, it might not be good now, but we'll be talking about this. And we used to talk about, what's it like on the other side? Where do you think you're going? We'd have this conversation, we'd go on for hours. And we were doing that. We did that, I don't know, for years on and off. More intensely, obviously. And so that's my point. You have to live your life as if it's your last day. And I've had to catch myself, especially if I've got this huge wave of grief coming over me. Now, hang on a minute, what can I do differently here? I might have a big cry, get all blocked up. Don't you hate that feeling? You know that one, Katie. You get all blocked up.
Yeah, I'm doing that right now.
And your eyes leak. Exactly. You've got to start laughing. So I think it's important, if there's in the dying phase, let's call it, of our life, if we have the opportunity to have that phase, and we don't always, see what you can milk from it. Because I tell you what Jean did every day. Every day.
Thank you for sharing that. That was beautiful. And to know that, you had, you still were able to, enjoy life as much as you can whilst, she was still here. And, like you say, it's easy to go down that spiral of, let's just stop here. I'm going to go anyway. What's the point? But yeah, like you said, live like you die. People that are just always like wanting to improve their lives, keep going, move, they're the ones that, obviously, like you said, depending on the timing and when you do go, whether you have that time to do it or not. But yeah, I think that's really beautiful to know, and yeah, for you to share, because I know one of my girlfriends, she was like, I'm really looking forward to this conversation that I'm having with you, because her husband passed away quite a few years back now, but she was very young when she was in her early 30s when he passed. So she was very interested in this conversation that we're having. So I wanted to ask you, you were saying that, Jean was comforting people that were coming to visit her and say goodbye. And you were like, what is going on here? Do you mind sharing, I don't know if you talked to Jean about, how she could also comfort people. Like, she's the one going, like, come on, like, what is going on here? Like, I don't know whether you asked her what was going through her head when people came and she was comforting them. And what were the things people, like, what was it that made Jean have to comfort them? Like, what did they come to say goodbye? And then, like, what would Jean be saying to them? I'm just so interested in, like, the dynamics of that whole situation.
Well, I think part of what happens and what happened is that people are not used to it. Like, people don't know what to say. Sorry to hear you're dying. That doesn't come out their mouth. And our friends, and we never had a lot of friends, but we had good friends. If people were struggling, she would say, just talk to me. This is just part of the cycle. And then people would start crying. Oh, I don't know what to say. You'd say, it's all right. This is part of my journey. It's what I'm choosing. And she was choosing it. She knew this is where she was going. And I don't know if anyone ever follows 𝐼𝐷, but she says that in her channeling, that if you knew what I knew about the other side, you'd be dying to get there. And she used to say this to people, and they'd be like, what? They'd have a bit of a giggle, the crying. And she would take people's hand and say, what is it you want to say? I don't know what to say. No, there must be something. There must be something that you want to say. And usually it was about thanking her for, because she was someone, and I know you only knew her briefly, but she would give unsolicited advice. She would tell you what she thought, whether you wanted to hear it or not. And you know, people would say that they really, it frightened them at first when she was like that, but they grew to love that part of her. And I think, well, I hope, I haven't checked it out with everyone, I'd like to think that she broke down a lot of barriers about this thing called death, the dying, because we're still dancing around it. Like, it's going to keep happening, whether we like it or not. It's been happening for years, in spite of us. And yet we don't talk about it. You know, we say, oh, did you hear that so-and-so? And everyone's had these conversations, haven't they? And then it's just like, oh, it's so terrible. But it challenges, I think this is it, it challenges us to contemplate our contribution. Have we lived our lives? Or have we wasted it? What have we done? You know, certainly in my early years, I could have done more, but I did the best I could. I think it's confronting. And of course, now the next part of that journey is, what do we do with Mary? She's on her own now. Do we invite her? You know, on the odd man out, so to speak. What do you do with it? And someone said to me at Jean's memorial, I don't know if I've ever called you Mary. It's Mary Jean, you know, or Jean Mary, or, you know, and that made me giggle a bit. And if you knew us, we're very different human beings and very different opinions, and we would have some good conversation. But last year, Jean was in hospital. Her birthday's coming up on the 19th, and we knew that things were pretty grim. So I suggested to Jean, why don't we have a birthday party in the hospital? And tell me who you want to invite, and we'll have a lovely time. Oh, what a great idea, she said. So she made up the list. She texted to me before I could get home that day. And then she went on to tell me what she wanted. And I loved that about her, you know. She asked this friend, can you do, like, we've got a friend who makes amazing pavlovas. Now, Jean is not a sweet tooth, but she made sure that there was a pavlova there, this sort of thing. And what I witnessed that day, and I think there was a lot of healing took place on that day, people just sitting on the side of the bed talking about what they'd learnt from Jean, and Jean was able to share what she had learnt from them. And I had to leave, and there was still a couple of people there to get home to the dogs and things. And the next day when I was talking to her, she said, oh, I can't believe how much of a difference I made. Oh, it just touched me. Oh, she said, I could see why people have a wake before they die, because this is really valuable. It's been heartening for me. She felt deeply touched. But I could see that she was facilitating that. She was managing that whole birthday, as she did. That's who she was. How wonderful. Imagine it. If your friend called you up and said, I'm dying, do you want to come over and let's talk about our relationship? Imagine that happening. It's like, what? What am I supposed to say? Oh, I don't know.
Yeah.
What a great opportunity,
That is very true. Like you just wouldn't worry about all the small things if if your friend had said that to you. Any grudges, anything that you've ever had, it's like that's no longer important.
It means nothing, you see.
Yeah.
It means absolutely nothing, and it's a great leveler, isn't it? Someone asked me, what's this all about? And I said, well, it's not about anything materialistic. It's not about where we live. It's not about who we know, the big influences of life. It's about how we loved and how we touch each other. We feel just the essence. And it was good for me because this time, 26 years to be loved deeply, and I got it. I might have taken a while to get it, but I was feeling so fortunate, and we talked about this, how fortunate we felt to have been able to deeply love each other, to have that experience, to, I don't know, even now I talk away to her and say, it's going to be one of those moments, to be able to feel sustained for a long time because of the love you left on my heart. And then I think, I'm sure everyone here on this podcast knows that someone who's never been loved like that. I don't believe it's meant to be that way, I think we're all put here to love, what is it, love thy neighbour as thou love thyself or something. But so many people miss it, and the privilege for me was to be able to acknowledge that and to say that, oh my gosh, I'm so grateful that you've loved me all this time. Because we take it for granted, don't we? You get in a relationship, it doesn't take you long just to be kind of in the groove together, and sometimes the appreciation goes a little bit, the gratitude goes. We need reminders, and then something happens to bring us to our knees. In a heartbeat, we're back there. So, the gratefulness, the kindness, deep love, they're more important than anything.
Yeah, I totally agree. My word for the year is love. And I've had so many, when I journal, messages that are coming through. It's like, we are here to learn how to love ourselves and love other people and receive love, because that's something that we're not very good at. There's a lot of people that give love, but they don't know how to receive.
I think that was me for a long time. I think that Jean taught me about that, about receiving love. And, I in my courses, I talk about, where are you in your pecking order? And some people tell me that they put 20 or more people before themselves. And I say, how is that possible? Do you start the day with an empty fuel tank? Because clearly you must. And I think mothers are probably guilty of that every day, where the last thing they want to do is to get up for themselves out of bed and be caring and provide for the little ones that can't provide for themselves. And I think the receiving is so much harder because it takes so much more of us. Let me tell you what I mean. I think it's easy to give, isn't it? It's an action. Action. Oh yes, I'll give you this phone. I'll give you these flowers. But than to be receiving. It's like, you just got to pause. You just got to do a bit of breathing. Have you noticed how people stop breathing and they don't take it in? It's like, ugh, I couldn't possibly take this in. And during Jean's really challenging times, I guess the realisation when she became less and less immobilised, we had to move house. And she was really worried that it was going to be too much on me. But this is what happened. 8 or 9 people arrived on Friday, picked up everything, and I mean everything, and moved it from one house to the next. No removalists, just 8. It was 9 in the end. And put everything back how they found it. And I found that so difficult to grasp the enormity of the giving, because I was receiving it. I mean, Jean, the first thing and person we moved was her to the new house and set her up where she was comfortable. Oh, she said, it's just amazing. The door opened and more things appeared, and then they went, and then someone else came. I mean, tears streaming down my face, going, oh my gosh, I can't believe this has happened. And some people that were coming on the Saturday arrived with the trailer and everything and said, oh, and looking inside, nearly everything's gone. I said, yeah, people just went crazy. But I was so touched. People turned up with food, a good bottle of red, which is always important. And just gave and gave and gave. And at first I was saying, no, we're all right. But then I thought, hang on a minute, stop. Let this all in. The kindness of people. Some people that helped were people that cleaned our house and insisted that they help. Oh, that's phenomenal. We hardly knew these people. Isn't that amazing? But it does require a bit of stillness and breathing. You've got to breathe to receive, let's face it. Otherwise, you just kind of repel it. It was a life lesson, actually. The kindness that people showed, particularly in the last 2 years of those 5 of Jean's illness. The kindness was, oh my goodness, off the chart. I don't believe I'll see anything like that again in my lifetime. The outpouring, like a neighbour that we hardly knew, just arrived at the front door. Well, you know, we've cooked up this chicken, thought you'd like it. Didn't even know these people. How does that happen? What?
That's amazing. I just love hearing about the kindness of people, because I think, we're led to believe that, there's not much kindness in the world. There's lots of bad stuff happening, but there's also a lot of good things happening. It's just not on the news. It's in everyday life.
That's right. And I think it's so easy, isn't it, to overlook that aspect, when in fact kindness is all around us. We just don't see it.
Do you know why we are so resistant to receiving love and kindness? Because like you were saying, it took you a while to learn to receive. What was it that was stopping you from receiving before?
Well, I think for me, I can't speak for everyone, but for myself, growing up with that phrase, don't go being selfish. There's that whole cultural thing don't be selfish. Do something for yourself. Takes it away from another, but it, and as a child growing up hearing that, because that was in our house quite a lot, it never occurred to me that I ought to contemplate this whole thing of receiving. Now, when you think about it, like, oh, that's crazy. Why wouldn't you? It's a natural part of who we are. But giving, oh yes, I must respect my elders. I must help them. I must clean up after myself. Yeah, because I came from quite a strict family. And so the giving just was something that I learned very young. The receiving, on the other hand, took me a long time. The receiving was never modelled to me. I can't honestly say my parents modelled receiving. For example, I can't imagine you, if your little ones gave you a present, that you would go, you wouldn't deflect from that. You would be just thrilled. You would take it and say, this is gorgeous, I love it. Even if it's not your colour or smell, you would still say, this is, But I didn't grow up with that modelling, and I think modelling is really important. And the other thing is that we have to teach our bodies to take in anything like that. Like I said, I think breath's pretty profound. You see people holding their breath, and especially traumatic situations, don't you? First thing is, you take our breath away. There's that saying, it took my breath away. Well, it literally does. But I think sometimes when I have stopped my breath, it's possibly about not wanting to feel that feeling. So I think it's about the feelings more than anything. And if we can stay away from it, if we can deflect from it, then we're safe. If we start feeling, we become vulnerable. And then what happens when we're there's quite a story to it, isn't there? Vulnerability. Oh my gosh, what's going to happen? And we show ourselves. And when we show ourselves, if the other person doesn't like it, we've got nothing else because we've showed ourselves. What do you make of that? Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I think, like you said, you're not speaking for everyone, but just thinking about myself as well, it is, I think, a lot to do with modeling about the receiving part. It is very much, especially like for me culturally, is very much about, giving. And the receiving, it's very hard. Like, just as an example, I remember when I used to work in England, and one of the my manager bought me a gift, and yeah, I received it, but I felt the need to buy her something back because it's that kind of receive. Is not the really like I'm just allowing myself to really receive. Not is the gift is a gesture, but is the energy of the receiving that we're not used to. Yeah,
That's right. And I think I have a friend that in the first few months after Jean passed, she'd say, you want to go out to lunch? So, yeah, that'd be nice. A break. And she always wanted to pay. I actually must talk to her about this. And I say, why do you want to pay? So, well, I don't see you that much. So I want to pay. The first time I felt myself almost taking her on and not letting, And then I get home and I reflected on this. I was like, oh my goodness, that's just about her showing her love. I was talking to myself. I was saying, for goodness sake, Mary, will you let it go? But it seemed. So that's modelling as well, You must take responsibility for yourself. You must pay your way, all those beliefs that we get. And that still makes me giggle telling you because I had such resistance. And then I just started laughing at myself. For goodness sake. It's a small amount. It's nothing. It's not, and it's not about the money, is it? It's about the gesture. It's about the giving. It's about the kindness.
Yeah. And I think if you think from a different perspective, is you're actually robbing the person that's trying to give you something of their ability to give. You're actually just stopping them, and that's actually worse, right? you're stopping them from giving you. They're pouring their love into you, and you're like, nah,
That's right.
no deal.
Yeah.
Go away. So yeah, when you think about it that way, instead of being in your head and going, oh, I shouldn't, maybe think about it in that way. You're actually, stopping them from giving you their love and their generosity.
And who are we to do that?
Exactly. Yeah. I used to be like that as well. But now if people want to pay for me, I'm like, thank you. It's still hard. Like I still feel that resistance, but I'm like, okay, well, they want to pay for me, cool, thank you. And I'm like, next time I'll pay or whatever, doesn't matter.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And yeah, but when you're talking about fighting your friend, it just made me think of being Asian upbringing. The aunties and uncles just like go and fight for the bill. Like they actually would like snatch it off each other. It's like it is actually a fight. So it just made me laugh when you
Yes,
said that.
that's right. Yes, I've actually seen that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's actually quite funny. Yeah, I sometimes am Asian auntie now as well.
Yeah.
But I want to ask you, Mary, this question. These two questions came up, and the first one is, what was the biggest thing, or maybe a few things, if there is a few, what is the biggest learning from this process of, watching Jean going through the process?
Well, initially, I think it was, this is her process. This is not my process. Right from diagnosis, Jean had a particular way to deal with this, that I made an agreement with her, and I did, that I would honour her wishes to the letter. And the doctors fought Jean to have surgery, and quite aggressively. Not our own doctor. She's just remarkable and very special. I'm not talking about her, but I'm talking about the system. And she never wanted to have her breast off. It was never. She just said, no, I'm not doing it. I want to do natural therapies. And there were times when people would ask me what I think, and I would say, it doesn't matter what I think. Oh, yes, it does. He's your partner. And I say, no, it actually is, in some ways, none of my business. And I remember visiting some people one day, and this woman was very annoyed with Jean. He said, oh, that's right. Just think about yourself. That's what my friend did, and she died. And I was so mad with her. And Jean said, it's my body, isn't it? My body, my process. And to be completely honest, did I waver on the odd occasion? You bet I did. And I would tell her, I'm wavering in this moment, but it's always going to be your decision. Always. And that's that's been a huge learning because, honest to goodness, it took me right to the knife edge some days. It challenged every belief that I had, my whole nursing, all of that. But I gave an agreement. I'm not saying that I would have wanted Jean to take another path because she'd never been happy. And that's not how it's meant to be. But I believe that everyone has the right to live their life in the way they want to live it and to die in the way they want to die. And I don't think it's for anyone to and I mean medical staff, I mean everyone, to take that right from them. Let's face it, when you're ill, you lose a lot of your rights. And I think that's been the biggest major learning, to have full respect for the person who's going through the process. And I witnessed a couple of times people just from afar and professionally when I was a nurse, people being bullied into therapies that they didn't ever want to participate in. They're under immense pressure. For example, we had, I don't know what they call it now, where they have a mass meeting around the bed.
Yeah.
And I was not able to make it to that meeting because I was working, because I continued to work because I love what I do and I wanted to keep working. So the agreement was that when they had the team meeting with Jean, that I would be on the phone. And so I was at home, the phone rang, and Jean said, "They're already starting, they're not listening. I told them they've got to wait for you." It was amazing. So I just had the speakerphone. And so they started talking, and I said, "Can you tell me, please, who's in the room? And can you also tell me, is there room in this discussion for Jean to have an opinion about things?" And they kept talking, and I said, "Just stop. Let's just stop the conversation. It sounds like there's at least 7 people in the room. So tell me who you are and what's the objective of today? Because so far we don't know." And then there was just this sort of uncomfortable silence, and then people started to say who they were. So there was 8 people in the room. They were all talking across or at Jean, and I had to keep stopping them, saying, "Oh, okay, let's stop there." I had to raise my voice. "Jean, what is it you want to do?" And that's what I'm talking about, you see. I think it's her body, her right. And imagine the vulnerability of that. Sitting in a hospital bed, you're sitting there in your nightie, you're not clothed, you're vulnerable. 8 people are there, all standing, you're in the chair, or this time she was in the bed. Like, that's just dreadful. It shouldn't be like that. I got on the soapbox. But I don't think it should be like that. And why isn't the system different? What is it about us that we don't feel that we have the right to ask better questions, to get better solutions? Because they wanted to send Jean home. Yes, we're going to send Jean home tomorrow. And I said, "No, you're not. You're not sending her home tomorrow. I simply do not have the supports in place to give her the best possible care." Now, it turned out to be quite a fight. Me on the phone, and the next day in the hospital. I can imagine what was written in reports about us, me, because I became this absolutely pain in the neck advocate. And I think that's what we have to be. We have to be better advocates for those that we love. Stop leaving them hanging out to dry. Our kids, our parents, our siblings, people we love. So that's why I think that was the biggest lesson. Because all the time I had to keep reminding myself, this is Jean's journey. Yes, I'm part of it. But it's her journey. It's her choice.
That's a beautiful learning, Mary. That's and big respect to you for respecting her choices as well, because like you said, like even that friend where they're not respecting Jean's choice, it's all about them. Oh, I was so angry at my friend who passed away. Hello, here's the one dying here. Why would you even like? I just don't understand. But I mean, that's another conversation. But in terms of like healthcare, I mean, we both have healthcare background. But to think of people in the hospital, in the healthcare setting that have no healthcare background, they cannot advocate for themselves. They don't even know the right questions to ask. And that is scary. You know, even you having the experience, you still had to like really push and advocate and speak up. So, you know, for people that don't have any healthcare background, then really it's even like harder for them to speak up. So my heart breaks for those people where they are just being told what to do with their bodies rather than actually having the ability to make a choice. Yeah.
That's right. It's, I will say this, and I found it quite offensive. Someone said to me, you know, Mary, the bottom line is we need this bed. That's why they wanted to send Jean home. And as I have to say, I felt quite cool, you know. I said, I don't give a damn whether you need this bed or not, but we need this bed. And she will not be coming home until everything is in place for her. So stop pushing me, stop offending me, and just go away. And I found that offensive. I wanted to move. And look, even if that was true, don't tell me. It's not my problem. You know, that's your problem. It's not my problem. But what a line. If you were feeling guilty and you felt like, in that moment, people probably concede and say, all right, yes, well, I'll take them home. And that's what concerns me deeply, that people then get bullied into situations that they're not even emotionally able to deal with it, let alone physically. It's a big physical responsibility.
Yeah,
No?
definitely. Yeah, I think this is like another conversation altogether. But yeah, I totally feel you with you know, that aspect. And the other question I want to ask you that came through as well is you mentioned earlier on that, you know, Jean has passed and you're still learning after, you know, she's passed away. Do you mind sharing what are some things that have come up for you to learn and experience after her passing?
Well, you know, one of the funny things is that when you're in a partnership for so long, that you forget how much the other partner does. It goes. And you might, well, I'll take responsibility. I might have left tasks because Jean was better at it than me. Or I might have left tasks because I was just damn lazy about it, right? And I giggle now because there's no one coming in to pick up that thing that I've left. There's no one going to miraculously make me dinner because I get all passionate in my office, either in a group that I'm running or I get passionate about, excuse me, about writing something. I go out and I go, damn, that's right, I'm still going to make dinner. I forgot. You know, I'm still doing it all these months later, and that's what I laugh about. Oh, yes, and sometimes I can't even be bothered thinking about what I've got to prepare because I didn't ever have to think about that. I would finish, I would tell Jean what time I'll finish, I'd come out and there's a beautiful meal. It doesn't get much better than that. I mean, that's more on a humorous note. That is funny. You know, I remember a couple of months on, just waking up one Sunday morning, the dogs are on the bed, and I sat up all upright because sleep with the curtains open so the sun and I can see, the birds and. Oh, that's right. There's no one coming to save you.
So I just definitely it's like,
What are you waiting for? No one's going to save you. The hell, And I think that's real. Because there was times when I wanted someone to save me. I just wanted. I didn't want to be strong anymore. I just wanted someone to come in and go, "I'm here. I'm the magic genie. I'm gonna," I tell you what. There was a lot of magic genies turned up, but in terms of getting on with your life, I had to get on with it. And I actually was talking to my doctor just a couple of weeks ago. I said, "What happens to people like me?" She said, 2 things happen. Either they start drinking, people start drinking, or they die. It's like, really? I suddenly felt quite good. I was like, oh, I'm actually starting to get into things again. And, a couple of weeks ago, I flew to Melbourne and spoke at Generation Women. My goodness, if you're out there, it's a great thing to go, and you should go. It's great. And, just starting to participate in life again. Because I didn't like the other 2 options that the doctor was talking about. I was quite surprised. In retrospect, it's not surprising at all, either drink yourself silly or die. Pretty lousy options.
was there not a third option?
Welcome.
I was like, what? Is there another one?
Yeah. I guess the other thing that I've learned is that they're a hell of a lot more fun when you've got a partner. There's a lot more giggling. There's a lot more shared meaning. And the thing that I miss the most is meaningful conversation. Like, let's face it, how do you find conversations like we're having? I mean, you've got this podcast, you're allowing this to happen, you're creating this moment, and thank you. But where do you go to find these conversations? Think about it. The things that the Jean and I spoke about that were really important. It could be just talking about the 5th dimension or, the year of the dragons, transformation. I want people to be able to meet me with juicy conversation. And I find myself, I've got good friends and I'm very grateful. But they've all got partners. So I find myself seeking meaningful conversations. And I certainly have meaningful conversations with my clients, that's for sure. But there's so much juicy stuff in life, isn't there? Well, sometimes just when I go shopping, I have a giggle and I want to say, isn't that interesting? I never thought that. Oh, let's just say I go to Aldi and I see salmon Wellington or whatever it is, salmon Wellington, yeah, that's different. It's a beef Wellington. And I wouldn't know how to make that. That's not too meaningful, but it's something to giggle about, isn't it, when you're going around? And so what I've started to do is just to talk to people when I'm shopping. And some people are like, don't talk to me, I'm just shopping. And some people just start smiling at me, Like one time, June had only been passed a short time. I went to the supermarket. It was Aldi, and I went and I bought for things. And, you can do the checkout now. You couldn't for ages. And someone called out, "You've left hardly shopping here." And just things like that. I packed up what I don't know, I was probably in a daze and hurting and weeping quietly to myself. And these are moments, aren't they? Those people could have easily just picked up those things and had them for themselves. I wouldn't have I wouldn't have known. Yeah. I could say a lot more about that, but other learnings like Jean had the green thumb. Imagine that. She left me with all these pot plants and 8 orchids. What a responsibility. You know what I mean? Like, these are the things, these are the simple things. Out of 8 orchids, 7 flowered in the summer, and I was just, oh, thank God for that. It works, whatever I did. I'm not saying I can't garden and I can't look after flowers, but that was her job. That's what she loved to do, you know? I'm sure in your relationship, you'd have jobs, even though you might not talk about them. You might not delegate them accordingly, but those are things that you have to pick up the slack on all of those. And they may seem trivial, but at the end of the day, you have to be the person capable of doing that, no matter how trivial or how deeply important they are. Does that all make sense to you? Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I think even for people, you know, where their partners are still here, we sometimes do take our partners for granted with all the stuff that they do. So it's a good time to, you know, just feel that gratitude that they're there to help pick up the slack that you might not know they're picking up.
Absolutely. It's a kind of, well, I don't know that we notice sometimes, do we? There's things
Yeah,
done.
we don't. Yeah, exactly. Just magically happens. And I'm not the green thumb
right.
either, so I totally get how you felt. My orchid is dead at home, so I'm a bit devastated. Yeah, so Mary, I'm just looking at the time and thank you. This has just been such a beautiful conversation. It took me 40 minutes to stop my ice leaking, but that's okay. I knew it, so I was prepared. I told you before. I'm like, I better get my tissues because otherwise.
That's right. I prepared with my hanky. But
Well, you did way better than me. Mary, just before we wrap up, I'd love for you to share, you know, what you would love our audience to take home with them from our conversation, or even if it's something else that you feel, you know, deeply called to share for them to take home with them.
it's it. Talk about what death one. Talk about what you want, how you want it, what you're willing to tolerate or not tolerate. Don't miss the opportunity to grow until you're dead. So much opportunity there. There's so much richness. And always advocate for your family. Don't let your loved ones go to doctor's appointments. I don't care how trivial they seem on their own, because you simply do not take all the information in. No, don't leave people hanging out to dry with things that are important. And above all, if you're not sure what to say, then tell that person, I actually don't know what to say. And let them help you through it. Because we need to talk more about this. We need to talk about voluntary assisted dying. We need to talk about how we die, what happens with our minds in the process. Unfortunately, I would love to have an advocacy system happening, but you know, we all know that requires big bucks, an enormous amount of influence to influence the right people. I know I digress, but I think our health system is in crisis. So we as individuals have a right, and also, if hopefully everyone listening to this cares for someone, but just take the time to talk about it. Right?
Yeah.
How you want it to be. and make it on your terms, because Jean pretty much did everything right up to the end on her terms, and I loved that. I didn't always like it, but I loved that she could do that. And we're very fortunate. I just want to add this little bit, if I may. Jean spent 5 days in a palliative care unit. There's only 3 beds. Can you imagine? Had this private room, beautiful garden. And our dogs were there all the time. Every time I was there, the dogs were there. But don't forget your pets. They had their process as well. And even when she passed, they knew. When we came home, they knew. So don't leave them behind. Hey, thank you.
Thank you, Mary.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Thank you so much for coming back on and for this really beautiful, heartfelt conversation. Yeah, I just noticed that there's people in the audience, and like I was so engrossed in our conversation. I didn't even.
Oh, I forgot about that too.
If you've got any questions, you can type in the chat, or if you want to call in, that's also good. But in the meantime, I'll get Mary to tell us where to find her if people want to, find out more about who you are, or they want to check out what you do.
Yeah, thank you. 𝐵𝐸𝐴𝐷𝐼nfluence.com will find me. It's got mostly everything about me. If you're on Facebook, obviously Mary Scott Influence, and the same on LinkedIn. And I like to talk to people. If some of this has stirred something up for you, I'd love you to reach out to me. The first call is always on me. And no obligation. It'll either feel right or it won't. The timing will be right or it won't. But I'm fully on purpose working mostly with women over 50. But having said that, I've got a couple of 20-year-olds that are changing their lives in front of me. I'm privileged. And one of them is a young male who I adore. And I said to him this week, I'm learning lots from you. And it's a bit taken back. But 𝐵𝐸𝐴𝐷𝐼nfluence.com. Do yourself a favour, reach out if you need something. Don't starve yourself. I'm here, I'm willing. I'm happy to share my learnings, my knowledge. And, you're doing it all the time, Katie, with this, with your podcasts and reaching, places that other people would never reach. And I've taken a leaf out of your book of creating my own podcast. I'm not sure it's as well put together as yours, but it's great to learn new things, and I certainly will be learning and growing until I take my last breath. So I encourage everyone out there to be doing the same. So thank you again.
Thank you, Mary. If you're catching the replay, if you didn't get a chance to ask Mary a question, then you can always pop it in the comments, whether you're on Facebook or YouTube. I'll make sure those questions get to Mary. We'll get you guys connected. And thank you so much once again, Mary. I love you so much. And thank you once again for this beautiful conversation.
Oh, you're so welcome. It's been my privilege.